Today we look at the digestive system with a particular focus on the stomach. Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Minke. This is Minke Wellness. And we've started our discussion already in March here with the digestion starts in the mouth, and we chew our food and we start to taste, and then we talked about the esophagus. So let's go ahead and look at the whole system kind of mapped out. I've got a little diagram here that shows us the digestive system, and then we'll kind of track it down, and we'll get a lay of the land. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the saliva and the stomach acid and that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to do today. All right, okay, so let's look at our diagram here and trying to keep the glare off. We've got we've already talked about the upper digestion in your teeth, the mouth, the tongue, the salivary glands. Okay, we'll do a little bit of work right at the beginning here talking about the saliva and salivary glands. And of course, it's the saliva that lubricates the food and actually produces the ptyalin. It's an enzyme that starts to break down sugar. But it produces 1.5 quarts of saliva every day, and so that's that lubrication that helps the food move down the tube, and it goes down the esophagus into the stomach through a sphincter. Okay, the yellow one is the stomach over here. The liver. This is how big the liver is. Goes all the way across the midline, sits right underneath the heart, and then the esophagus comes over here. It loops over. Now, one of the things I want to point out is the diaphragm is right here, so the esophagus actually has to penetrate through the diaphragm. And this is a bit tricky because there are situations where if there's something goes wrong, if we sit, and I'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow, but if we sit and compress our bodies hunched over our that line over the esophagus, then we can actually end up damaging that area, and it's called a hiatal hernia, when that stomach actually starts to come up through the diaphragm, and it creates a lot of problems, and a lot of acid leaks into the esophagus because that sphincter doesn't close properly. So there's a sphincter that is, what a sphincter is. Our mouth is a sphincter. A sphincter is any muscle system that is a circular contractile muscle. And so the mouth is a sphincter. There's another sphincter at either end of the stomach. There's a sphincter at the end of the small intestine, the ileocecal valve. It's more of anyway, I think it's a sphincter. And then we have the anus is a sphincter. So we got a number of little areas that keep regulation of material flowing in and out. Okay, so we've got our stomach here, and then the stomach, the other valve on the other end, so the food comes in the top, comes out the bottom, and then starts to move into the duodenum, which you can't see because it's right behind the, it goes right behind the transverse colon here, and then we go into the jejunum, and then ileum ends up over here with the ileocecal valve that goes into the large intestine. We're not going to do much on the large intestine this time. We'll focus mainly on the small intestine. Okay, so that's the basic diagram. Now let's kind of work our way kind of experientially a little bit down that tube. I know we've done a little bit of this, but we're going to just kind of start to get more familiar with this process, and let's pay a little bit more of attention to the stomach, okay? And so when we get down to the stomach, so we're going to breathe in and feel the mouth and feel the teeth and the tongue. We've done this before, but let's kind of just renew that experience. And I'm just going to breathe in an awareness of the mouth and teeth and feel the structures there, and then this time add in the salivary glands, the parotid gland, and the salivary glands. Parotid gland is back. The salivary glands underneath, usually underneath the up underneath here. So feeling those glands. And just kind of breathing in, and we don't have to be absolutely accurate. We're just, with intention. Our intention is to kind of make a connection with that. So as we get a little bit better and better, if you're not familiar with this breathing system and you're just coming in and looking at the digestive system, then you want to go back to the first week, go back to week 1, and we'll kind of guide you through a little bit about the techniques that I'm using for the therapeutic breath. So using our intention of directing our attention through breath. So now we have the throat and the esophagus, okay, and remember back with the respiratory system, we had the epiglottis that covers the top of the trachea, windpipe, so that when we swallow, we don't have food go down the windpipe. So the deep direction, the esophagus is deep to the windpipe. The trachea is up here in the front. the windpipe here, and then when we swallow, it goes behind that. So the esophagus actually is deep to the trachea, so it's behind the lungs, behind the, or I should say behind the trachea, because the lungs are on either side. But anyway, so it goes down that shaft, pulls slightly to the left, and then, so we're following that tube down, and then into the stomach. So here's where we have that sphincter, and the very top of the stomach is a sphincter that whenever there's food coming down, there's a reflex that opens up that sphincter. Now, if everything is okay, then everything is just one direction. The sphincter prevents the stomach acid from coming back up. But like I said, if there's been trauma to this area for a number of different reasons, but mostly chronic sitting and hunched over is going to create potential hiatal hernia there, and that's where we end up with the acid leaking back up into the esophagus, and can be very damaging and very painful to the esophagus. Okay, so breathe down and just touch that with our consciousness, touch that sphincter. And if there is a lot of irritation in that area, then we can just do a soothing breath. And you might actually consider those oils, the video I did, topical for the tube, using the essential oils for soothing the tube, and go back and look at that video there. So now I'm going to get into the stomach, and the stomach is an amazing organ. It's not just a stupid mushing sac that just kind of crunches up. It's actually extremely intelligent. There's an entire nervous system worth of connections, of neuronal connections in the stomach. So it's a very, very smart, very literally intelligent organ. Lots of information going on, and it's responding to the food that we're eating, and it's producing it's getting the body ready for all that. The main digestive thrust of the digestive activity of the stomach is using hydrochloric acid, fairly concentrated hydrochloric acid, to start to break down the food, and then breaking down the protein with pepsin. Okay, so those are the two main items in the stomach. That there's a lot more going on in the stomach, but those are the two main things that the stomach is kind of known for at a basic high school level. And so we'll kind of just pay attention to that and breathe in. Now, the stomach acid is produced in the cells that are around the lining of the stomach, and then those cells also produce a huge amount of mucus, and that's that mucus that protects the stomach from the lining from getting digested and torn apart by its own acid that it's producing. Okay, so we've got this production of mucus. So I want to breathe into that lining of the stomach. And the first thing I want to do is connect to that protective mucus. I really want to encourage that protective mucus to be produced. So I'm going to breathe in and kind of feel the whole stomach. I've just eaten, so I feel the whole stomach stretched out a little bit. So I'm going to be aware of, thanking it for its activity and encouraging it, being very, very encouraging to the stomach. And I'm really going to get that lining, healthy and sparkly and producing enough mucus to really protect. And so it's very soothing and protecting of the surface of the stomach, inside surface. And now I'm going to work on breathing in and stimulate the acid production. So get that acid to be squirted into the stomach, into the center of the stomach for breaking down that food. And again, I want to keep a tight, awareness of this sphincter up top, and tell that to keep closed, because I really don't want any of that stomach acid to come back up. Okay. So again, I'm paying attention to the acid and how it's breaking down food, and just imagining that food break down. And then there's this production of pepsin, okay, which is the enzyme. So I'm going to imagine that pepsin being produced. Okay, and getting a sense of this activity that's going on in the stomach. Now, the activity of the stomach can be very distracting. In other words, it's that we tend to, if you're ever one of those people that tends to, when you eat, you get tired or sleepy or distracted, and you just want to just do nothing. And there's a lot of activity going on in the stomach. And so if we did a few breaths after dinner, or obviously it's usually after. I don't think of things before. I'm kind of busy doing stuff, and then I get in and I eat, and that's like my enzymes. You eat enzymes before you're supposed to take enzymes before you eat dinner, but I never remember that. So I just take them after. So taking enzymes after I eat, if I feel heavy, is a totally valid way to help give some relief or help the stomach do its job. If the stomach is weak for a number of reasons, stress, we'll talk a lot more about stress and digestion, but stress will definitely shut down the activity of the stomach, and our digestive activity or digestive potential is blocked with stress. And so that can be for a number of different reasons, but in other words, the stress can be different causes of stress, but it really doesn't matter whether the stress is self-induced, watching the news, getting all upset about the political environment, or if there's real life. I mean, I'm being chased by an alien or something. I watched this show on UFOs, so it's kind of got me distracted. But so what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter whether the stress is something that has happened to us. It doesn't matter the source of stress. A lot of people say, well, it's normal stress, or it's okay. That stress is understandable. It doesn't matter to your stomach whether you understand that stress. Okay, I'll talk a lot more about stress and digestion. Okay, so back to the stomach, we're going to really invite that pepsin to be produced and start talking about, really. And so now we're getting the activity, the stomach is moving, and feel the turning and the move, because the stomach actually literally physically starts to work work the material in there, and it's not exactly grinding because it doesn't have any grinding mechanisms in there, but it's definitely turning and churning because it wants to keep everything mixed. It wants to keep the surface area, as much surface area as possible. It's mixing the acid and the enzymes in with the food. And so the one thing you can really do to help your stomach is chew your food. Remember what we said back? I meant to mention this. I know we talked about chewing your food, but that is the number two habit for your digestion, is to chew your food. Okay, chewing your food stimulates digestion because you put pressure on the molars, and then it actually literally starts to break things down. So the smaller the particle of food, the better when it hits the stomach, and then the stomach can work on it with the acid and the enzymes. Okay, so. And just encouraging the stomach and giving it that vitality and a little bit of your attention. You'd be absolutely surprised at how responsive the stomach is to your intention, i.e. to your stress level or your calming effect. When you encourage the stomach, it really does respond. And so I'm breathing into that stomach, and I'm just going to stop there. I'm not going to worry about getting it on through the stomach. I'm just going to spend that time. So after we eat, so our lesson for today and for the rest of this month, if you can do 1 or 2 breaths after you eat to bring in to say hi to the stomach and encourage the digestion happening, the breaking down the acid and the enzymes to break down the protein in particular in the stomach, but to start to break that down. And then each time we learn one of these pieces of the system, we could do while we're eating. Now, not to inhale your food, but while we're eating, take a breath into the taste system, 1 breath. And then after we've eaten, take a breath into the stomach. And then a little bit after that, as we get into talk about the liver and the absorption, we could, a few hours later, we could talk about the liver and absorb. Do another breath to help with that. So we're going to learn these breaths that we can do all month, and then of course we could continue it on to be conscious of our digestive process and to help it with our consciousness and with our breath. Okay, and so we're going to talk tomorrow about the structure and how structure can affect. I'll back up a little bit. Maybe you can't see me yet, but I'll talk about how as we sit and fold over and we compress across our stomach, we can start to make problems with the hiatal hernia area. And so we definitely don't want to compress and crunch the stomach and cause problems with that sphincter area in the esophagus. So we'll talk about that tomorrow, so stay tuned for tomorrow. But today, like I said, just really giving thanks and paying attention for this week and month to the stomach and acknowledging the role that it does. Okay, so like I said, we'll be continuing on through. Give us a comment or two if you have any questions. Happy wellness. We'll see you tomorrow.